Hi guys, Jordan from P&P Campers. I'm just going to be doing your handover video on this Autocruise Starfire. So this particular one's based on the 2005 Peugeot Boxer. And first place I'm going to start is just here under the bonnet. So on the left hand side here we've got your engine battery. A couple of fuses and relays down here, but not really much to point out really. It's all to do with your charging in the fridge. Brake fluid reservoir up there attached to the servo. Power steering fluid here at the front. Chassis plate is just down here. You have got two places that you can fill the oil up from, so because the one at the back here is a little bit awkward to get to, you have also got this secondary one here at the front. So if you want to do it from there, you can do. The green topped little pulley just there is your oil dipstick for the engine. A couple of more fuses and relays behind this little cover, and this one here as well. Engine coolant goes in this reservoir over here on the right. Air filter and your washer fluid is in here. So as for under the bonnet, that's about it, apart from the fact that you've got this little sticker here, which is basically just telling us that Fiat 249 is the white colour for the vehicle. So if you ever need any touch-up paints, 249F, 249 Fiat is the one that you want. Fuel filling point just inside here, that's a diesel filling point. To get that open, we just push on the left hand side and that releases that little cover. So in the cab we've got a couple of bits, a little bit of storage down here underneath this passenger seat, same on the driver's side. These front seats do swivel round and you use the little orange handles there to do that. I'm going to show you around the cab in just a minute, but when I get around the other side I'll do that. So on the near side just here, first big locker we get to, quite an important one really. So we've got loads of storage space in here, but the main thing really is that you've got your leisure battery down here on the left hand side. So any power that you need to use in the back end of the vehicle, so for your lights and the ignitions and things like that, should be running from this battery here, and I'll show you how to use all that system when we get inside in just a minute. Cover for that is just here as well, goes over the top like that, and you've got these two little bits here to hold that down. Behind the habitation door we've got these two vents which are both to do with your fridge. Awning light up there, and obviously the full-size wind out awning up the top there as well. Step comes in and out really nicely, so we've got a switch just inside the door here which pulls the step in and out nice and easily. Couple of light switches just here for inside the vehicle, one just down there is a little entry light. So your lock has been fitted there as well, so there are two keys for that inside the vehicle, but that is a brand new lock. These ones are really sort of flush fit, so you wouldn't even really know that was there, but that is the cover for the screws on the inside. But these are very strong, so you shouldn't get any issues with that at all. So you've got a two bike rack at the back of the vehicle and your full-size tow bar as well. Reversing camera, and there is the screen in the cab as well. A little bit more sort of wet storage down here at the back. Good access just here on the offside. Next locker along is your toilet cassette locker. So this is a Thetford toilet cassette. So to take the actual cassette out, we pull up on the little yellow tab here and then pull the entire thing towards us. From there, that's about all you need to do really. You just pull it out, empty it out from here. So this swivels round, empty it out from here. And when you're emptying it out, you should be holding down the little yellow tab just there at the back, just to relieve a little bit of pressure. You've got a freshwater flush on here, so you haven't got any separate flush fluids to worry about, so it's literally just comes straight from your fresh tank. And that is it. Just underneath here as well, if I just get down and show you, This little bit here is the drain for your wastewater. So if we pull that out from here, you can then drain out the wastewater tank, which is that one just there underneath. The fresh tank is accessible from the inside. The waste isn't, so that's where that is. So your boiler vent is this one just here. So if you ever needed to double check that the boiler was definitely working, you can do that just by putting your hand over either side at the top. We've then got your freshwater filling point. So on these auto cruises, they always tended to use these types where you have to plug a little pump in basically. So I will show you how to use that as well when we get inside in a minute as well. But that is really, really simple. Hookup point. So having a hookup cable plugged in means that you haven't got to worry about any power. You know, you're going to be charged up all the time. Also gives you access to any 240 volt appliances you might have. Yeah, always recommend having a hookup in if you can. Gas locker. So you've got a single propane bottle in here at the moment. This is a 6 kilo propane. This locker has been sort of specifically built to have 2 of these propane bottles in either side of each other, but you know, it's completely up to you how you want to sort of lay this out. Most people would just stick to having these 2 bottles because it means you haven't got to change anything over at the back either. But so all you need to know really is that to turn the bottle on, you go anti-clockwise around to the left, and to turn it off, you go clockwise around to the right, all the way down to the bottom, and that will isolate the gas bottle completely. So there you go, that is your gas system. You should always try to remember to isolate the gas before you start driving, just to save any problems if you have, you know, if you're in a crash or something. So in the cab itself, it is fairly straightforward, to be fair. We've got the reversing screen up here, so that will give you access to using your straight out camera and your rear view camera for reversing up to things as well. 5-speed manual gearbox, all of your sort of temperature controls, hazard lights just there from the middle, factory fitted Peugeot head unit just there, so that's not being played around with. Lights and indicators from the left, washers and wipers from the right. This little extra switch just down here, just in case you didn't realise, does the added little, there's like little fog lamps at the front in the bumper, so that's what that switch there does. You've got the electric adjusting mirrors from here on the driver's door and windows as well. And I'll just point out to you, so we've got the steering column adjustment just there, bonnet release handle just there, your OBD reader is behind this little cover, and your main fuse box is behind this cover here to the right of that. So that is the outside. So I'm just going to jump inside now. So the first thing I'm going to sort of run you through, or take you to, is going to be this part over here. So normally, to be fair, the control panel in the van would be sort of like above the door, or just here, somewhere really close to the door. But in this particular case, they've put it over here in this cupboard, which I actually quite like, because it means that it's all sort of hidden away. When this door's shut, you know, it doesn't sort of take up any space. So that's why they've done that, but anyway. Right, so this is a plug-in systems control box. It's a power management system, so PMS. So essentially this is where every single thing 12 volt and 240 volt comes to here, and then it gets sent around to wherever it needs to go to. So that means that you've got your 240 volt trip switches in here. You've got your main fuses over here on the right as well, and all of your sort of level indicators and blah 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 blah. So I'll run you through it. So the first and the most important one really is this switch just here in the middle, so the one that says battery select. So what you've got is off, van and car. So basically, obviously you can probably tell off is off, it just turns everything off. This is essentially telling the vehicle what battery it wants to use to power various parts of the vehicle. So for the most part, if you're going to be in here using the lights and using the pump and blah, 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 you're going to want to be using van. All right, so van instead of car means it's going to be drawing power from your leisure battery, which is the one that you really want to be drawing power from. If you select car, if you press it up to the top, it then basically switches over between the two batteries and it will start drawing power from your engine battery, which is obviously not something you want to do, because after a little while, you're not going to be able to start the van up. All right, so that's kind of the idea behind that. The only reason they tend to put a car selector on there is because you sometimes, don't quote me on this, because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but sometimes if you're hooked up on the mains and you have the charger on, if you select car, it will actually start charging the engine battery. All right, so that's why they actually put that function up there. But it also means that any power, so if I went up to the top there, car now, and then I started going through and turning on the lights and all that sort of stuff, then all of my power is being drawn from the engine battery, which is obviously a bad thing. So down on van, anytime you want to be using the 12-volt power. We've then got the little switch to the left of that, which says charger supply. So that is when you're hooked up on the mains. This should glow up red if you have it down on. And that basically just tells you that the battery charger is working. And by the way, the charger is inside this unit behind. So again, all tucked away in here, nice and neatly. Having that switch on, charger is switched on when you're on mains. The one to the right that says pump, you've got two different options on here in this particular case. So you've got internal and you've got external. So the reason that you've got internal and external in this vehicle is that you've got an internal pump, which is this one down here. Okay, and that is the one that's going to draw water from your fresh tank and send it to the taps. So anytime you want to actually use the taps inside the vehicle, you need to have that down on internal. Okay, the other option that you've got on here that says external, what that one does is if you want to fill the van up with water, as I showed you on the outside, you've got your freshwater filling point, which is where this little thing comes into play. So you plug this thing in here, and then you've got this here, which is basically this is one of a few different types. So this is if you've got access to a hose point. You plug this in and then plug in the hose, and that will then just fill up the tank. But if you've got, I don't know if there's going to be one in here or not, if you've got one of the types which plugs into that socket out there and has a little submersible pump on the end of it, you need to have the external power on so that it starts powering the pump up and sucking the water through your external roll-away tank or whatever it is you've got, and starts drawing it in to the fresh tank. So if you're trying to use the external filling point, you need to have external pump turned on. Okay, but for the time being, we're going to leave it down on internal because we want to be able to use the taps and get everything pressurized. So the last thing is this one down here. So we've got battery test and water test. So if I press up and have a look at the battery scale there, which is the top scale, which is the colours. We've got red, yellow and green, and we're right at the top in the green, and that is showing us the voltage in whichever battery we've got selected up here. So van, so now we can know that our leisure battery is at full power. If I go up to the top for car and do the battery test again, that's showing us the car battery, the vehicle battery, and that's it. So the next one down, water, this is just going to show us the fresh water level. And we're looking at the bottom scale on this one. 3/4 of a tank of fresh water. And there you go. So there isn't a specific level indicator for the wastewater. So what I would recommend is before you leave, drain the waste tank out completely. And then by the time that you start running low on your fresh water, it's a pretty good indicator that your waste tank's going to need emptying. So that's just the way I would do it personally. So we've got various switches around the vehicle. Once we've got our battery select switched on, we've got various switches around the vehicle to use all the different lights. These two front ones here only work when you're hooked up on the mains, and they are like a little touch button type thing. But that is a mains light only, these two at the front. So control panels all sorted there. I'm just going to leave it on internal pump and van battery, and that means that we can use the pump, we can use the taps, and everything that's 12 volt should then come to life. Okay, so hopefully that all made sense. So if I start over here by the door, if you're going to want to come in here and use your hot water and, you know, all that sort of stuff, there is something you need to do. That's a very short process that you need to do every time, really, just to sort of save yourself having to fork out for things when they break. So firstly, and the most important thing really, is to make sure that your boiler is actually full of water. All right, so before you start trying to, you know, switch the boiler on and use it, you need to make sure it's actually full. So to do that, all we have to do is basically come to this kitchen tap, pull the cold water through. So at the minute we're just checking that we've got pressure in the cold system, which we do, and then over to the hot. So a little bit of air come through just there, but that's absolutely fine. So we've got good pressure coming through the tap just there. It's never going to be like a household tap, you know, it's not that sort of pressure, but just doing that and making sure that water is coming through on both cold and hot means that we're up to pressure and we can go ahead and use the boiler. And the reason that you have to do that, the reason that's so important, is that the actual boiler itself, you know, if you try and light the boiler up on the gas and it's actually got nothing in it, then you're just going to overheat it. It's just, you're basically heating up nothing. So it is really important to make sure that boiler's full. The boiler itself has got a little drain just here. So the little yellow tab that you can see is the boiler drain off point, and if you lifted that upright, so it's like facing outwards there, rather than laying down flat, then all the water from inside the boiler would drain out onto the floor. The reason that you would do that is basically if you want to winterize the vehicle, so if you're going to be leaving the van over winter, it's really important to winterize the van by draining out that boiler. So, you know, if you've done that, the next time you come to using the tap on the hot side, you won't get any water at all coming through until you lay that little handle down flat and the boiler's filled itself back up. So just by doing that, just by pulling the water through on the tap, hot and cold, and it comes through nicely, just proves to us that the boiler is full. Because again, a lot like the waste tank, there's no gauge anywhere to tell you how full the boiler is. So that is the only way to actually be certain that it's full. So boiler drain off point, water pump. This is the back of the gas locker, just so you know that as well. And this is a heating duct here. So you've got these two parts just here, little vents for the heater. Right, so next thing is below this, we've got your gas isolator points. So each one of those correlates to a specific appliance, and if I just run you through what they are, so starting from the top, we've got the cooker, fridge, boiler, and the oven and grill. So really important just to make sure that you know those, because if you think there's a specific issue, you know, if you think there's a problem with a specific appliance, you can isolate it from in there. But that's all you would really use that for. There you go. So this is the kind of top spec cooker. So it means you've got the 3-burner hob at the top and your 240 volt ring on there as well. So the 3-burner hob, you've got ignition for each one of those. It'll just light up easy as that. The grill works in the same way, where you've got a dial and the ignition for that as well. And the oven, exactly the same again. Underneath here, you've got a nice little bit of storage in there that somebody's fitted. But there will be inside there somewhere behind that little drawer, yeah, I mean, it's unusual that you'd ever have to do this, but there will be a plug for the mains ring. So if you ever need to undo that for any reason, that's where that'll be. So up here above the cooker, we've got a microwave, which again is just something that's been fitted by a previous owner. That's not an original thing. But yeah, that's up there. That can be a mains only appliance, and you can see there the plug for it as well. All right, so next thing is going to be the fridge. So this is a Thetford fridge, and it's a Thetford 3-way fridge. So if I show you how that works, press and hold the left-hand button there to turn it on, and straight away it's coming up giving us a fault code. And the reason for that is that it's selected the wrong energy. So right there it's selected 12 volt. So 12 volt is only going to work when the engine's running, all right, because it works from your split relay. So what the 12 volt does is it essentially just keeps the fridge cold whilst you drive. It doesn't really cool the fridge down as such, it just keeps it cold. So for the time being, right now, I haven't got the hookup plugged in. I haven't got the engine running, but I do have the gas on. So the only way I can use it, press and hold on this button here, and then I can go through and select whichever energy I want. So I can't use the mains, I can't use the 12 volt because the engine's not running, but I can use the gas. So I press gas and then select my temperature, and it should light up. And there you go. So all the time that you've got a little green light in the power switch, it means that the fridge is on and it's working. So the only two ways it's going to get this fridge cold by itself is going to be either the gas that I've got it on at the moment, or if I did have the hookup plugged in, I could choose mains, and that will cool the fridge down by itself. But again, we're getting a fault code come up because the mains isn't plugged in. So I'll select gas again because I know it's the only one I can use, and that's it. That's how you use it. So just briefly on that split relay thing I was just saying about. So in every decent motorhome, you've got what's called a split charger or a split relay. And essentially what it does is it splits off the power that comes from the alternator when your engine's running and sends some of it back to the leisure battery in the fridge as well as just the engine battery. So that all the time that you're driving, the leisure battery is getting a good charging up at the same time as the engine. But having the power going to the fridge as well means that you can use that 12 volt function, which is the reason why it will not work without the engine running, because it literally uses the alternator to power. All right, so that will never work if the engine's not running. So press and hold there again, and as long as you've got no light inside the little power switch just there, that fridge is completely off. Just to the left of the fridge here, I believe it's going to be a full-size table. Yep. So you've got your full-size standalone table in just there. Fold out with the easy-to-use legs. And then behind us, we have got your heater. So this is your space heater. So this is a Trumatic Ultra Heat, is what this is called. And you've got the fan on here. All right, so that means that you've got the little vents, as I said a minute ago, and the pipes that go around to the various places. There will be a vent in the toilet as well somewhere, so that all the rooms will get warm. So to use these, you've basically got a little peep hole just down here and a piezo igniter. So pressing on that, it's a bit awkward to do with one hand, but pressing on that will spark the ignition inside the chamber. And then all you have to do to actually light it up basically is turn this little dial around to sort of 2 or 3 and push down, and at the same time as pushing down, there you go, it's lit straight away. So basically what I did was I pushed in on 2 or 3 whilst pressing on the piezo igniter, and it lights up the pilot flame. So at the moment that's just a pilot. So I'm just allowing that to warm up a little bit before I let go. And all I'm going to do from there is lift up on here, and then, I mean, straight away, because it's quite cold, it's kicked in the main flame, even down low. So I'm just going to press that on again. So this is a good example where what I'm doing is, because it's quite cold, when I'm letting up on this, it's trying to kick the main flame in, but it's not really taking, and it tends to go out. So if you watch, I'm going to let go of it now. So I'm going to lift it up. Main flame is now trying to kick in, but it's still just a little bit cold. So what I just did, because I saw that it was about to go out again, I just pressed back down on this, and the pilot flame kicks back in really, really nicely. So what I'm going to do is just basically leave this for as long as I can, really, without, you know, tiring your hand out or getting bored. Just to allow this chamber to get really nice and warm. And then once you've got that warmed up, the main flame will kick in and it will stay on. All right, so probably about now. Let's see. Yeah, I reckon that's going to stay on. There we go. So that is sort of a good example of what can happen. So, you know, it's not always plain sailing when you light these things up. Sometimes you do have to push it in again and just wait for that pilot flame to warm the chamber up a bit. But once you've done that, as you can see there now, I'm not touching it anymore, it's lifted up. And then if you want to, if you know you're going to have it on for a little while, you can turn this right the way up and just leave it going. So it's at this point here where you've got this on like this and it's working really nicely. It's at this point here that you can turn your fan on by pressing this little lever to the left. And then you've got your hot air coming out through the beige vents. And having the fan heating really helps, because it means that, you know, it's difficult because these work really well regardless with the fan or not, but they do get, like, if anything, too hot really. When you don't have the fan on, the fronts of these get so hot that they sometimes start to sort of peel away all this sort of Fablon. So really important to use the fan as much as you can when you're using the heating. And when you turn the heating off, by turning it all the way back around to 0 again, make sure that you leave the fan running for 5 or 10 minutes after you've turned it off if you can, just to sort of cool it down a bit nicer rather than it just all coming out here. So just check on that again. There you go. So that, yeah, definitely staying on there. It's not going to go anywhere. But yeah, that's how you use it. And to turn it off, all the way back around to 0. And then we'll just check in there again. Just see the little thermocouple cooling down a little bit, but that's all off. Right. So that is how you use the heater. Just going to check on something quickly. Right. So the heater itself is gas only. All right. But the boiler works on either gas or electric. So the first thing I'm going to run you through just briefly is going to be the electric functionality on it, which is so easy. So what you've got, it's a bit dark, but you've got a little switch just here, which is a 240 volt switch for the boiler. So as long as you've checked that you've got water in the boiler, like I showed you at the beginning, you can turn this little switch on in here if you're hooked up on the mains, and it'll start heating the water up. It literally is as easy as that. If you don't have the hookup plugged in, like me at the moment, you can come over here instead and use the Ultrastore gas switch. So, sorry, I'm just going to get a bit closer to that. So, again, this is just as easy as the mains one, really. But the only difference is you have to choose your temperature. So, anywhere between 30 and 70. And then twist the ring on the outside. And as long as you've got the gas switched on and the cover off on the outside, that should light up and give you a green light. So leave that for about half an hour or so and you'll have hot water. There you go. Easy as that. So the bathroom. I very rarely spend any time really in the bathrooms because they're so straightforward. So you've got, in this particular case, you've got this shower point, which basically doubles up as the sink tap as well. So if you want to use it as a shower, you lift this out and put it up the top here. If you don't, just use it as the normal shower point in the sink just here. Toilet is the bit that I normally sort of run through more than anything else. So what you've essentially got is a blue button over here on the right. Press and hold on that, and that pumps around fresh water as the flush fluid. From there, all you need to do is pull this handle towards you, and that drains out anything that's in the bowl into the cassette, and then push this back. Once you push that back, that's it. That's all you have to do. Light switch is this pull cord just here as soon as you walk in, and that's actually really nice and bright in there. The shower door does come across, it does open up. Just turn that light back on. It does open up. At the moment there's a couple of bungees holding it on, which, you know, if you're happy with that, then that's obviously okay. It works really well, but essentially you've just got this little thing here which adjusts the height of the shower head if you're using it as the sink, and you've got this one over here on the right for if you're using it as the shower. But the whole thing pulls towards you and makes up into the shower cubicle, so it makes up into a really good size. But yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's about it for the bathroom really. Just trying to see if there's anything else. Oh, that's right, in the wardrobe we've got your TV aerial booster. So if you want to use this booster, there's a little switch on the top left hand side just here, my finger is, and that turns that on and off. I think what you've got on the roof is one of the ones that doesn't move, a fixed TV aerial, if I'm not mistaken. Can't see it from in here, unfortunately. But anyway, so if you want to use the TV, basically you need to come in here and turn on your TV aerial booster, otherwise you will not get a good signal. TV's over there. You have got various sockets over here for certain bits and pieces. So that's your aerial socket and a 12 volt. A couple of mains sockets and a mains isolator there, which I would assume is going to be for the fridge. So if you want to use the fridge on the mains, I'm pretty certain that's going to be an isolator for that. But there you go. Okay, so I think I've covered everything really. I don't think there's much else to go through really. But if there's anything you want going over or anything you want sort of, you know, explaining over again, just let us know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks very much.